self-paced is good to kind of have like a library and you can say that, oh, you know what, anybody can come and learn. But the fact is, most people don't learn. If you can delay your financial gratification, right? Chances are, or your chances of succeeding are far, far more than many others. Most people who start out to build ventures would actually have found success if they were if they had the ability to give them more time.
In today's episode of Founders Unfiltered, we have Hari Nair, the co-founder of Great Learning. Great Learning is India's leading provider of online professional and higher education. Hari is a computer science engineer by training and has completed his MBA from MDI Gurgaon. Before Great Learning, Hari co-founded a content management and social media analytics company called iLabs. Join us as we speak to Hari about his journey, his take on the EdTech ecosystem, and much more. Hello, everyone. This week, we have Hari Krishnan, one of the founders of Great Learning, with us. Hari, thank you so much for being on the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks, Mazin. Thanks to you and your team as well.
All right, so let's jump right into it with the rapid fire round. If you could be a profession in any other field unrelated to your current work, what would it be?
A lawyer.
And why is that? It's not like you've heard before, at least.
Okay. So two reasons. My grandfather was a lawyer. So as a kid, I remember going for summer weekend. This was in Kerala. So I remember going to my maternal grandparents' house for summer vacations, and I remember how his study used to be, full of these law books, those hardbound law books, right?
Yes.
And I used to be quite fascinated by that, right? But then I was, doing all of my schooling happened in Bhopal, back then, especially in smaller cities, the only kind of professions that one would get geared towards was either engineering or medicine in school, right? So law was not even an option. So I really never got to explore, what kind of a work it is. Then what happened, of course, is that my wife is a lawyer, so I married a lawyer, and that's when I really got to know, what kind of work happens, and it's always fascinated me. So if I could choose another profession, I would believe that I would choose law now, and maybe I would make a good lawyer.
Cool. Nice. What's on your bucket list?
So it's very recently that so I do like traveling, for instance, but I've not really traveled as much as, let's say, many of my peers. So very recently was in fact the first time that I ever did deep sea diving, and I loved it. Right. So one of the things that I want to do in the coming few years is to kind of explore that more, go to many more reefs, and explore that part of Mother Nature of our Earth.
Nice. Yeah, quite an experience. I stay in Thailand, so I get to.
Okay. So, yeah. So you're very much there. Yeah.
If you were the host of the show, what's one question that you'd ask yourself?
One question that I would definitely ask every entrepreneur is, why do they keep doing what they're doing?
We're moving on to some business-related rapid-fire questions. Bootstrap versus funded?
My personal view, bootstrapped. I can explain that later.
Okay. Come back to that. Your company's culture in 3 adjectives.
First, I would put accountability. Yeah. Second one that I would say is, at least in Great Learning's context, is commitment to quality. The third bit, I would say, the third adjective that I would use is mutual respect.
Thank you. That gives us a good overview into your company and how you guys operate, and we'll dive into that as we go through the conversation. But just to wrap up the rapid fire, what's one truth that few people agree with you on?
I think now in the in the recent times, maybe people do agree, but over the years, people usually never agreed, is that education or building a business in education is extremely hard. I still think Yeah,
Perceptions
now I'm
affect.
sure. Now I'm sure the reception of that thought is a lot
Yes,
more, or receptivity of
right.
that thought is a lot more. But see, I mean, every startup and thereby every startup founder has his or her own challenges. I'm not, belittling those challenges. I think it's a fact.
Mhm.
Any venture that you build is replete with, hurdles and challenges that you have to scale. But as a space, education is, to my mind, one of the hardest that
Really.
you can pick
Wow.
on when you have to really go out there and build a business.
Okay, so let's jump into your journey.
Yeah, so we started iLabs right out of, in fact, in the last trimester of the business school. It was incubated also at MDI, and it did not start off as a content management company. It started off as a gift couponing website. Sorry, not gift couponing website, right?
Like
Uh,
Groupon.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Right. So in the US there were a lot of them.
Mhm.
In India there were not that many. I don't think there. In fact, I remember we and Snapdeal's previous avatar. I
Hmm.
forget the company's name. Right. We were the two of them that were there in the
That too.
space. So for whatever reason, we thought that was very attractive, and that's what we got started with. We spoke to a lot of brands. So what we realized was that it was very easy to onboard the brands. Anyways, brands were giving discounts. That was hardly a cost for them to put out a discount coupon on one more website, and there were no mobile apps or anything, right? So as a customer, if you have to redeem that, you have to take a printout of that coupon and go to the store,
And it's a pain,
right?
right? Yeah,
That's the only
exactly.
way it works, right?
Yeah.
So brands were easy to sign up. So I think
So
we
people were
had
coming to
some
your website, printing out the coupons and taking them to
printing
the
out the
stores.
coupons and taking them.
It's
That's the only
crazy.
way you can redeem it, right? It's crazy. You can't even imagine,
I
right?
know,
That
right? It's
and something
yeah.
like that. But that's the only way it would work. And we signed up, I think, some of like 70, 80 top brands in the country across apparels and food and beverages and all of that. But the problem we realized was that nobody was ready to pay. None of the brands were going to pay us for this, right? And we, it's not as if we were funded, or we had a lot of capital. So we realized after about 6, 7 months that okay, this is not going to work. Not six, and maybe about 12 months we sustained, and then we realized it's not going to work because nobody's paying us for this. So what's the point? So then, when we were talking to those brands, we realized that there was this whole aspect where the marketing managers of these brands, right? They did not really have a single kind of a dashboard or a platform through which they could push out content to people on their email list, or people on their SMS list, right? So that CRM part was missing, right? And then Twitter was just coming in, but Facebook was big, right?
So they have to
So they
push it.
want
So email, SMS, and Facebook all
SMS
push
and
onto.
Facebook content, right? So they did not
Okay.
have that, right? And we had kind of built it because we wanted to kind of push these to different people who were
Ah,
registered
so
on
you
the
built it for
website.
yourself. Was it tool you're
Yeah,
using as
correct,
part of your
correct.
coupon
Yeah.
business? Yeah.
So we then piloted with one business to see if what we have as a product that we're using internally, would they be willing to use it? And they were willing to use it. They liked it. They were even willing to pay us a little money for it, right? So then we kind of pivoted, and that is what we took out to the various brands, and then through that platform they can publish discount coupons or social media marketing, whatever they want, right?
So coupons
And
just became a
finally,
feature of this tool
yeah,
that you're using
coupons,
internally.
exactly, exactly.
Amazing.
Coupons
Yeah.
then became a feature of that, right? So that's what we did. So the next 2 years was essentially taking that to the various brands and monetizing it. Um, and what we kind of realized then is that, yeah, it was a product that was being used, but we were never in the critical path of any of these companies or their marketing teams, right? It was, so for example, next month if our product would shut down, it is not as if they would really kind of miss us, right? Or miss the product rather, right?
Why though? I mean,
Uh,
it sounds crucial, right? Like you're pushing out marketing mm, content every day.
I think in today's time and age, I think it is more critical than what it
Okay,
was back then,
makes
right?
sense.
Today, there is so much of activation and reactivation that brands depend on through digital means, right? But in 2000, 9 and 10, it was a good
Interesting.
to do
Maybe people
thing.
didn't see the value of it, and
Yeah, they didn't see
they
the
just
value
want
of
to.
it, right? So hence
Yeah.
they were not, they would pay the bare minimum and nothing more, right? So we realized that okay, this is not going to, really, or at least we could not foresee it back then of it becoming, something bigger than what it was. And that's when, and to build this, to maintain this, we had to, have an engineering team, and we used to work with. So we had a few engineers with us, but beyond that, we used to work with a larger, IT product or tech product company, and they saw some value in it, in terms of what they could do on their enterprise side with that product, and that's how they acquired the product, you know um, and
So you
we
ran it
kind
for
of
about 3 years at this point.
3 years. Yeah, we ran
Okay.
it about 3 years. My then co-founder also wanted to go to the US to pursue his masters, so that's the journey he took in 2010. And so after iLabs, I was again at crossroads, and I was thinking in terms of what next should I
Hmm. And so, yeah, walk us through your journey. So,
do. Okay,
you-
all right.
uh,
So
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 just to understand the situation, right? So you had a small exit, so you had a little bit of cash on hand, and you kind of figured out what to do next. Walk us through that thought process, because I think
yeah,
that's quite a
you
challenging
know,
time for a lot of entrepreneurs.
right. So the exit was not, honestly, not a whole lot.
Yeah.
It was a very very small exit, and we'd taken, to sustain the company, we'd taken kind of loans from friends and family.
Okay. So it's more like a
Um,
break even kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
current
So
it
you
was
could
actually
really.
just about a break-even kind of a deal. So whatever
Okay.
money we got, most of it really went in paying back the folks, and paying some of our people who were working with us. And also, it was not, I wouldn't really call it an exit. It was more of a break-even kind of a situation, right?
Okay.
So what was very clear to me after a bit, after doing the iLabs for 3 years, was that I really enjoyed the the challenges of building a venture, right? Um, yeah, I mean, what kept me awake at night was the lack of financial rewards, right? But
And that
but
happened
the
twice now with two startups where you,
c-
yeah,
absolutely,
took
right.
that
So
as
that really kind
difficult.
of affected me, because all my friends, all my peers from business school were earning very well. They were going
Mhm.
places, and my life, or at least professional life, seemed to be stuck at a place, right? So that did bother me. But that aside, I really enjoyed, of building out a product, of, putting something out there in the market, of,
Mhm.
talking to customers, all of that part, right? So in 2010, when we exited from iLabs, my first preference was to, again do something, right? Again, build a venture.
Yeah.
There were two spaces that I was kind of zoning in on. One was on solar energy. Into around 2010, the government of India had made very ambitious plans on uh, how power generation through solar, would completely transform the country, and that opened up a lot of opportunities, for several entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
Um, but that was a very capital intensive business, and I did not have the capital or the expertise for that matter.
Yeah. Right.
But I was really fascinated in terms of the impact, right, that it could create, right? Um, and I mean, because I use the word impact, I'll also tell you. So, what happened, one of the things um, that kind of that I was not fully satisfied with at the 3 years of iLabs was the impact part of it, right?
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, when we were a B2C company, we were just giving discount coupons. Or when we
Yeah.
were let's say a product serving marketing functions, we were just one of the products. There was no, that whole lack of impact kind of, really bothered me, in the sense of what is the importance of what we are doing, right?
Yeah.
So which is why the next time, so after 2010, when I exited iLabs, the areas that I was really eager to participate in were
Good. So now you
ones
can have
where, yeah,
big impact.
where I could see impact, right? So
The
that's
solar
how
makes
that's
sense, and
solar
you see
made
that's a
sense,
big
right?
right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Got it. Got it. Got it.
and the other was education,
Of course.
right? I mean, there was of course healthcare and all, but then I have like zero background and zero,
You need to pick
yeah,
founder
and
market fit as well, right? Like
exactly.
that's
You
another thing.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely right. You have to pick founder market fit as well, right? So in solar, while there was a huge impact, there was zero founder market fit. Education was an area where I think most folks in India are very passionate about education. So everybody has a view about education. So did I. And I wanted to kind of be in that field to understand, what is the change or what is the impact that an entrepreneur or a venture can create, right? Because when you look at when you look at education from outside in, and again, this is 2010, so there are no edtechs anywhere in the world. So when you kind of look at it from outside in, education is only about large institutions, right? Large universities and large private colleges and, large schools and so
We've
on.
been around for 200 years,
Yeah,
India,
who've been
and
around for so many years, right?
yeah,
So my view was that, it can't be, there can be no space, that is consumed by so many people, that is so important to so many people, right? Where, a new person cannot come and create some disruption or have some role to play, right? It just
mm,
does not sound right? So I'm sure there are opportunities, but I need to be present in that ecosystem for me to even know, right? So that's how I joined Mohan's team. Mohan is also the founder of Great Learning. So Mohan was the previous MD at Tiger, and he just quit, or he just decided to move from VC to an operator role, and he'd set up this education venture. And one of the first projects was setting up a business school in Gurgaon, right? So I joined his team, and as a part of the team, we were setting up a business school in Gurgaon, and that's really what kind of gave me a more insightful and a deeper view of that education ecosystem, right?
yeah.
Of
So it
what
sounds like a crash course in
yeah,
in
that was
everything.
abs-
You set up a university, great.
correct, absolutely,
Yeah,
that was actually a crash course, you're right. So we built that business school till about 2012, and in 2012 is when Mohan and I we started talking about that. Okay, there is a different venture that can be built here in the space that focuses on executive education, and that was the genesis of Great Learning. Because back in the day, see, executive education was first of all, India was massively underserved when it comes to executive education, though it had, the world's largest population of knowledge workers. But in terms of, how do they continuously keep themselves abreast with changing technologies and changing skills, that part was really not answered, right? So most professionals used to depend upon whatever trainings used to happen within their organizations, but those trainings were very much, here and now, right? Those were very, very tool focused and not a skill focused, right? So, if there's a project on SaaS, you would be taught SaaS then, but you would not be taught analytics, right? So
it's the company wants you to get a specific task done. They teach you just that.
correct,
Come back.
it will
That's
just
it.
do that,
Yeah,
right? That
yeah.
that was the nature, right? Alternatively, if you as a working professional wanted to pursue executive education, then the options were very few. I mean, there was an ISB, there were a few IIMs, there were a few IITs, right? But all put together, they would probably have catered to like 1,000 people in a year, if at all that much, when it comes to quality executive education, right?
Yeah. No,
So that is the gap and the opportunity that we believe there was, and we said that, okay, how do you build an executive education company that can scale to, thousands and tens of thousands and lakhs, right? And obviously you need technology for it, right? And how do you build that out? And it is from that discussion and from that thought that Great Learning took birth.
amazing. And you mentioned that it's a really challenging industry to build in. Of course, from the impact side, it definitely checks that box, and see how it kind of lines up with your journey so far. But walk us through some of the challenges and why do you say it's such a difficult space to build in?
Yeah. So, and see, today, great learning is serves global markets, right? Today, we have business from India as well as international, and every market is different, right? The way education is perceived. And so, whatever I'm going to share now is primarily with, in the context of the Indian market,
Okay,
right? And the
we
Indian
can talk
learner.
about some of the differences later, but yeah,
Yeah.
please.
See, the context here is that education, as I said, for several professionals out there is their ticket to a better future, right? Um, so hence they come with a lot of expectations. Okay, sometimes very unrealistic expectations, right? I wouldn't say sometimes, many a times with very unrealistic expectations. In the sense, and I say unrealistic not from from the perspective that what good education can do for them, but unrealistic from the sense that how quickly do they want an outcome,
You get
right?
a degree and then yeah, you get paid
Yeah,
pretty
it's
much.
yeah, it's like, okay, I started learning analytics today. So first was that, okay, why does this data science program have to be 9 months, right? Teach me everything in 3 months, right?
Okay.
Because I want that salary jump or a new job or whatever the career ambition may be. I want it really quickly, right?
Mhm.
The second part is that even when they are coming in or they start, when most people start learning something, the focus is not on learning that skill and immersing themselves deep in that skill, but it is rather constantly around, okay, what is the organization hiring for, right?
So
So
it's
then,
just you want to move up or you have a specific goal that you want to
yeah, you have a very
accomplish.
specific thing, right?
Yeah.
So when we started our business analytics program in 2013, people wanted to learn all tools, right? There was SAS, and then there was no Python and all, but there was SAS, there was SPSS, and R was just about, gaining traction. People wanted to learn all three. And we used to keep telling our customers that, tools will change, right? Every 2 year you'll have a new tool, right? What will not change are the statistical models, right? And the algorithms, right, that help in data science and decision making. So why don't you learn those, right? One tool, you will migrate to another tool. How hard is that? But back then, that message was lost on many, right? They would think that is not what they want, teach me this entire laundry list of tools, right? Because what they're looking at is that, okay, my company is hiring for SAS, or I have this friend's company who's
Let
hiring
me
for
just
SAS.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so why are you not teaching me SAS, right? So it is this whole kind of constant nature of, one is that I want the best outcome in the shortest amount of time. Second is that, I want shortcuts, right? And learning a new skill is hard work, right?
You can't just shortcut
You
and get your promotion.
correct,
It
right?
has
And
to be
you can't,
practical.
right? Because you will have to demonstrate your skill set, and to
Exactly.
build a skill set is hard work. It takes time. So I think that that kind of dichotomy, right, was there, and continues to be there, I would say. But it, of course, now more and more people understand and realize the need for upskilling. So it does, in that sense, we don't have to convince anybody in terms of why do you need to upskill. But these questions still linger on in terms of, okay, how quickly will I get a job? What will be my salary hike? I want, like, will I get a minimum 50% hike, right? And things
So
like
that's
those,
how
right?
people are. I mean, if that's your measure and that's what you're looking for at the end of the course, then of course that becomes
Correct, correct. So that long-term
yeah.
view, right? All of
Yeah.
this comes down to essentially, one, the ability to put in the hard yards, right? And second is the ability to have a long-term view on education, right? Because as customers, that is not the view you take when you buy a product or service, right? And so people often don't treat education from that sense differently. They're like, okay, I bought something, I
It's
paid
a
this
tool,
money.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been 6 months, I've not got a promotion, right? So
Yeah.
what is my ROI? And I keep telling people that, how is it that when you buy a house, it's not as if every year you calculate ROI, right?
You 15 years calculate.
Why do you look at education differently, right? It is something for the future.
No, makes sense. And would love to hear about some of the difference between India and other countries. You've scaled to, what is it, 170 different countries now. And of course, there are quite a few cultural differences. You touched on it a little bit, but would love to dive a bit deeper into that.
So, our at Great Learning, we have registered learners from about 170 countries. And we have paid learners from, I think, more than 70 countries, 75 or close to 80 countries, right? Mm, the other 100 odd are on our Great Learning Academy, which essentially is a platform where we put out courses for free and anybody can come and consume. We started that in during COVID, right? Um, but for our paid course or learners who have paid into our programs, that itself is now more than 70 countries. I'll 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 just focus on two markets. India, I gave you the perspective, right? Let me focus on another big market for us, which is North America. The difference between the two markets is that when you when you get a prospective customer or a lead, right, from North America, that person is has already done his or her research, right, on why they want to, let's say, pursue a program or pursue a given course, right? They're more sure of their decision,
And
right?
it's
They've
not
all
to get the short term, like I'm trying to get
it
this promotion.
correct, correct. It
Got
is
it.
it is not it is not aligned to short-term outcomes, right? So that amount of, let's say, self-realization or maturity has come about where they realize that, okay, this is not something that, which I will reap rewards of in like 3 months and 6 months, but this is something to keep my career going, right? So that kind of maturity is there. That is one. Um, Second is they're more confident of the decision, of the purchase decision that they are making because they have done the research, right?
They're already convinced they want to do it, right? So okay, now
Correct.
you want to keep proving to them that hey, this is your ROI, or yeah,
Yeah.
that's quite interesting.
And the nuance there is that, see, everybody compares, right? It is not as if, as a customer, Great Learning is not the only option in front of you, right? So obviously you
Yeah.
would speak to multiple edtech companies, and then you would make a decision, right?
Hmm.
The difference in a North American customer is that they take the accountability for the final decision that they take, right? Because they have done that research and they kind of realize that, okay, I want to go with Great Learning or I want to go with ABC or XYZ, right?
Interesting.
In
Okay.
India, what happens on the other hand, first of all, this the short-term mindset is very rampant, right? You want to kind of, get to the best outcome in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of effort, right? So that is one part to it. The other part to it, and that we've already spoken about, the other part
Hmm.
to it is that confidence in decision making is not there, right? So while ultimately, as a customer, you are the one who's paying, but there is always this, let's say, tendency, right, to pin the blame on the service provider, right,
Good.
and not own up, right, to your decision making, right, or the need for assurances and reassurances, right? Even though everything is out there in written form that, okay, this is what you'll get, this is what it means, everything is out there, but just that reassurance, right, that are you really going to do this, you've written this, but does that mean that's what you do, right? So I think that lack of
Interesting.
confidence.
Why do you think that is? Is it maybe just because there are not as many products available for Indian consumers? I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Because it sounds like
um
the maturity comes from knowing and hearing that other people are doing it, maybe, and understanding that you think long term.
So I think, yeah, one big aspect is definitely the maturity of the market. See, executive education in the US has always been big, right? It
Yeah,
is not as if, edtechs had to come and make it big, right?
that
So it
makes
it
sense.
it wa- it was a very well known, well understood, well adopted learning journey, right? That as you grow in your career, you will go pursue. When edtech and online learning was not there, most people used to go back to schools to do that, right? So it was always there, right? Um, Whereas in India, that was not the case. While as we spoke about the kind of, there were very few options, right? So for most people, it's a new learning behavior that, that, okay, you know what, I need to keep learning every few years, or I need to keep upskilling every few years. So I think that difference is definitely there. Uh, I think the second part, of course, is not really specific to education, but I just feel that in mature markets, uh, you as a customer, you have more protection against,
Yeah, that's a
businesses that will, right, that will come and
yeah,
tell you
building
one thing
false
and do
claims.
another.
So you're less
Correct,
protected.
right?
That's a good point as well. Yeah.
Right.
No,
Whereas
that's
in a market like India, you don't have that, right? So customers are always on the so for them, it is about, okay, this
yeah.
person is going to swindle me. Now let me do all the checks and balances
The default is
to
that
yeah,
yeah,
the
rather
default is that,
than
right? Ki, okay, if you're
yeah,
taking my money, you're going to run away with it. Okay, so
yeah,
now let me see what are the questions that I can ask you to ensure that you don't run away, right? So it's just you're approaching it from a different, perspective, right? And I think that is because, for many of them, probably they've had those experiences in the past, right?
yeah. No, no, that's fair. And so wanted to ask about YouTube as well. I know Great Learning has an extensive content library on YouTube. Has that been a big strategy for you for growth? And um, you know, how did you go about doing that, building that out?
For many years in the beginning, our let's say our marketing strategy was largely around performance marketing and referrals, right? We always used to keep getting referrals from our current learners and alumni and so on, right?
Okay.
It was only about 4 or 5 years uh, later when we started, post a start, that we started actually really focusing on other marketing channels such as organic and so on, and content marketing, right? And what we realized was that, increasingly more and more of the people coming into our funnel were searching for topics on YouTube,
Uh,
right? Especially working professionals, right? And we had a lot of content, right? So that's how we decided that, okay, if people are searching for it and we want to basically show them or showcase our quality to them, so then let's start, putting these topics out, which are not programs, but they are more of specific learning needs that, how do I do this, or how do I do that, or what does this mean, or what does that mean? Right. And let's give them content, and, hopefully over a period of time, as they get more confidence around the quality at Great Learning, they will start coming into our programs also, right? So that was the journey that we wanted to consciously build, and then we started with that. Then we went into shorter master classes. That, okay, here's a one hour master class on, let's say, financial analytics, or here's a 1 hour master class on, you know cloud architecture, or
mm,
different topics that, or full stack development, different topics that most people were curious to learn about, right? And in all of those videos we would say that, okay, we also have a full-fledged, immersive, exhaustive program at Great Learning, check that out, right? So that was the funnel that we kept at it, and it kept building. Then what we did is that we took the so in YouTube, as I said, none of these were structured as courses. They were either very short videos, or they were master classes.
right.
Then during COVID, what we saw was that, we started getting a lot of inbound traffic from college students, and we know that
From
college
college students.
students, yeah, from college students, a lot of them, right? It went through the roof, and because Great Learning programs are always, I mean, we price them at a certain premium, because for us, we've always been bootstrapped and profitable, and for us, those margins really matter,
Yeah,
right?
and
So
you're going after that executive market anyways. So
exactly, and we're going up to that executive market, right? So,
right.
so while we could see that there is an increase in the college student audience, we knew that, for most of them, these programs are priced beyond their means, right? They will not be able to pursue these programs, right? So we wanted to see what could we do for them, and that's how we started Great Learning Academy, which essentially is basically, again, those are courses, but they are all self-paced courses, shorter courses, 20 hours, 30 hours, 15-hour courses, that anybody can come and sign up for, and do those courses for free. And you if you successfully complete the assessments, then you get a great learning certificate for doing that. And then we started building a funnel from there into our paid courses as well, right? So today both those marketing journeys happen, right, from YouTube to there, or from Great Learning Academy to our paid
Your
courses.
free courses too.
Yeah.
Got it. And I also wanted to ask about you partner with some really prestigious universities. So how did you go about doing that? And you know, I guess my biggest question is what was the incentive for them to work with you?
Sure. So today we work with more than 30 universities, and one of the things um, that we have always taken a different view of than our peers in the space is that we've always said that we will work with the best of universities, right? Rather than working with a lot of them and offering same programs with multiple universities, or programs in the same space with multiple universities. We took an alternate view where we said that, okay, we will basically go deep into every skill, but partner with one very good globally recognized university, or if it's catering to the local market, then one very good locally recognized university, right? And that, so it will be a smaller set of universities, but top notch universities, right? So that was the strategy or the path that we took into partnering with universities, and that's how you see the selection of universities which are really globally well known, right? Now when we started talking to them, many of these universities already, especially the international universities, they already had programs. They already had their, executive education business, and there were several programs happening there, and so on and so forth, right? And some of them, in fact, even had online exec programs, right? I think in our conversations, what really kind of stood apart in terms of how they viewed great learning and why they participated with us was that we were the only ones globally who were offering not self-paced courses, right? So for us at Great Learning, we don't charge for any self-paced course. All our courses have something known as live mentored learning. What that means is that you will get content every week that you can consume at your own pace, but every weekend a mentor who is an industry expert in that field will come and do like a live class for like 20-25 of you, right? So small groups, 20-25 learners are bunched together, right?
So you
And
get to
there is
learn
an
and
yeah,
interact.
and there is an industry expert, right, that we call as a mentor, right, who takes live sessions for an hour or 2 hours or so on, right? Clarifies doubts and sets them up for the next week and so on, right? So that model where there was so much of live learning in small groups, right, and fueled by industry experts, that we call as mentored learning, was not done by anybody, right? And definitely not done at the scale, right? So when we kind of showcase that that is our ability and that is how we ensure quality, and this is the reason why our NPS is so high. It's amongst the highest globally. Our completion rates are amongst the highest globally. All of that happens because of this, right? Because of this constant hand holding and guidance that learners get. So that really excited a lot of our partner institutes, because they understood that that is a critical part to learning. um, Self-paced, self-paced is good to kind of have like a library, and you can say that, oh, what, anybody can come and learn, but the fact is most people don't learn.
We need to be really motivated to kind of get
Or
through
yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah, you need to
or
be super
something on the
motivated.
like total end of the spectrum. But yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get it. And wanted to also ask you about the kind of macro environment. The past few decades for EdTech in India have been, booms and busts, to say the least. And I think still, definitely a lot of opportunities for aspiring entrepreneurs. So, maybe a two-part question. One is, what do you think is happening in the industry now, and where do you think the opportunities are for aspiring entrepreneurs in the EdTech space?
So, so I'll, of course, I mean, EdTech is a very large spectrum, right? That starts right from K-12 and goes all the way to tertiary learning, right? Because of my experience, I'll restrict my views to upskilling and higher education, right? So, so the trend in upskilling and higher education is that it's not as if there has been a demand slowdown. I think the demand is quite robust, and it is driven by what's the disruption that's happening at companies, right? Because upskilling closely mirrors what happens in at the workplace, right? So if there are new disruptions, like for example Gen AI, right? If there is a lot of work that's happening in Gen AI, and suddenly if companies start talking about adopting Gen AI and using more of AI and machine learning, then obviously the message to all the employees in those organizations is that, listen, I need to upskill, right? Otherwise I'll be obsolete, right? And then they will start looking at, okay, how do I upskill, right? So it is closely driven by what is happening in the organizations and how the organizations are kind of looking at their future, right? So that's what happens, right? So last year or so has been a year full of activity with lots of disruptions, in that space, and which is why we, I think, continuously or continue to see good top of the funnel demand metrics when it comes to upskilling, right? Some of the other trends, of course, are that online degrees. There is a huge market opportunity that has just opened up only in the recent years for people to pursue online degrees, whether in India or abroad, and that is massive. It is much bigger than professional certificates or executive learning, because there are many people who are not able to pursue masters when they are once they start working, but they do realize few years later that they need the credibility for that, and or they need the academic credentials, and now a path opens up for them, right? And then the third bit that I see is study abroad. So study abroad is something that has always been there in India, right? India continues to send more and more kids outside to study, but now there are options where you can do the first year online and the second year on campus, which brings down your cost, right? Or you could even pursue the same degree completely online. So all of these are opportunities. Advice to entrepreneurs is that, just as I said, I think opportunities are there. Um, you know, um, One is, it is important to understand the ecosystem. So outside in, everybody has a view and everybody has a perspective. Try and kind of immerse yourself more, so that you really understand the landscape. That is one. Second is, as I said at the early part of our discussion, that come in with the understanding that this is a hard problem to solve. There are no easy problems to solve when it comes to education. Also, because it's a lot of accountability on you as an entrepreneur, right? You can't just decide in like 6 months that, oh, my venture did not work and I'll fold it up. What happens to all those learners who are pursuing your programs, right? You have a commitment to deliver it,
Back
right? It
to
is
one
not
of
like,
your core
right?
values, like commitment
Yeah,
is
right. So you just can't, like, shut shop and leave, right?
right.
So it is a hard problem. It is a problem that if you do well, you will create a wonderful impact, right? Beyond business. Very few, spaces give you that opportunity to create that impact beyond business. Education is one of them. But do acknowledge and understand it's a hard problem. There is hard grind, but if you do it well, you could actually leave behind a wonderful legacy as an entrepreneur.
Seems like the perfect time to ask you what's next for you and what keeps you going.
I think what's next for me is, to my mind, I know Great Learning has completed 10 years. In this journey, in my journey with Great Learning, I've completed 10 years. But I think there is so much more to do, right? If we just keep doing what we are doing, it's not as if we've solved all the problems and we've kind of, really achieved what we wanted to achieve, right? And new opportunities and new areas of impact keep opening up every few years, right? 3 years back, if we would have spoken, online degrees was not an opportunity at all. Today it is, right? Study abroad, was a very close space. Today it's really opened up, right? So every few years, if you are there, you know, uh, keeping at it, every few years, new spaces will open up, and that's what I signed up to do, right? To basically, create that impact and create a business. So I think, uh, the journey is very clear. There's a lot more to do at Great Learning, and that's what we continue to build. Um,
And what keeps you motivated and keeps you excited about it day to day?
so Honestly, and I'll give you a very honest answer here, right? So as I told you that, in my when I was coming out of iLabs, right, there were two regrets that I had. One was that the impact part, I could never answer that, what what difference was iLabs creating to the world, or what was the impact it was having. And second part was that the financial rewards was, it just did not, the math did not work, right?
So yeah, you
And
met those.
uh,
You continue.
oh yeah, yeah, yes, I'm very happy with both those aspects today. Um, but then one of my mentors, he gave me a piece of advice which I hold very dearly. The advice was this, that as an entrepreneur and as someone who's going to build out a venture, right? There are there are several challenges you will face, and I mean that is par for course. But if you can delay your financial gratification, right? Chances are, or your chances of succeeding are far, far more than many others, right? In fact, I distinctly remember, when we were interacting with Mr. B. Chandani all those years back, he mentioned that his belief is that most people who start out to build ventures would actually have found success if they were if they had the ability to give them more time. So time
That's
is what
predominant. Yeah.
Yeah, so time is what the access of time is what an entrepreneur does not have in control. And if you start sweating about that, and if you keep measuring your progress against some artificial timeline that in 3 years I should be, so, this is where I need to be, in 5 years, this is where I need to be, and so on, uh, chances are that in the initial years you're up for disappointment, right? Sometime down the road, when things start picking up, you will start compounding and you will start doing better, right? But you have to be there. You have to last till that point, right? And unfortunately, nobody has the answer as to whether in your journey, whether that point will happen in 3 years, 2 years, 7 years, who knows, right? So I think that aspect is important, right? That how long can you delay your financial gratification? How do you not get anxious about time, right? And do what you set out to do with the right intent and build it to the best of your ability, and then kind of um, let things play out, right? So why I gave all of this backstory was that in my initial years, because I was coming out of iLabs with these two regrets,
Mm-hmm.
there I was also guilty of this, of plotting my progress or comparing my success, right, to how much I had, or how quickly did I create an impact. And those initial years, every time I would do that, there was only like more self-doubt and more questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until of course I happened to meet this mentor, and I spent some time, and that's when I cleared my head and I said that, what, things will work out. What I don't know is when will they work out, right? So I need to give myself time, and that's what I did, and I'm privileged and grateful and blessed that it did work out. So today, when I look at it, what keeps me going, it is not that part, right? What keeps me going are two things. One is, I think, in terms that impact, that desire to create a much larger footprint of impact,
Mm-hmm.
um, is really important for me. I don't think we've done that. I think there is a long journey ahead of us. That is one.
Okay.
Um, and the second is that how do you know, so great learning is now 10 years old, right? At 10 years old, I don't think companies should call themselves as a startup, right? You cross that now.
So,
In the
yeah.
startup world, you have to start behaving like an adult,
Yeah.
right? Which means you have to be more responsible, right? So I want to see that how do we build this, how do we build great learning into a sustainable, profitable venture, right? Like we hear, the big companies, right? how do you chart that path, right? Where the institution becomes bigger than any of any of us who run it, right? And how does that legacy? So what is that journey that's to be had, and what do you do from here, into the future that actually sets up great learning like that?
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Hari. That was a incredible piece of advice that seems to have really impacted and shaped your journey. It's been a pleasure chatting.
Thank you so much, Mazin. Thank you for your questions. Thoroughly enjoyed this. Hopefully, this would all be useful, or at least some of it would be useful to your learners, to your listeners.
Thank you, Hari. Bye.
Thanks. Have a good day. Bye.